I Bear Witness, a poem by Elizabeth W. Garber in collaboration with images by Maryjean Viano Crowe. 1. I Bear Witness, Buenos Aires, Argentina, 1975 to 1983. I was the mother who finished the dishes, folded the clothes, before taking the bus across town to arrive in time at Plaza de Mayo. I opened my purse, pulled out the white scarf with names written along the edge, stretched it over my head, tied it under my chin. I unfolded the cardboard sign with photographs and names. I leaned into the elbows of the other mothers and began my circling walk every week for 30 years. I carried black and white photographs of my last memories, my daughter laughing, my son kissing my brow, my husband embracing me in the kitchen, before the splintering blows against the door, the grabbing of their arms, the squeal of tires. I lived in nightmares of their faces beaten, their fingers broken, electrical cords shocking their genitals. I lived in nightmares of their rape, their torture, their beatings. I lived in nightmares of their bruised, blackened bodies left to rot in trenches, their beautiful bodies riddled with bullets, their drugged but living, breathing bodies pushed out of airplanes to fall, to fall, to fall into the shark-riddled sea. I pried myself from the nightmares and returned to walk at Plaza de Mayo long enough to outlive the bullying soldiers, for the fall of governments, the trials, the naming of names, the uncovering of bones, the discovery of stolen grandbabies raised by families of the generals. I grew older, from mother to grandmother to great-grandmother, as the faces I carried on cardboard grew younger, luminous, ever more beautiful. At the end, when I grew too old for walking, their arms lifted me as I took flight from this life of bearing witness. So 2. I Bear Witness, Cairo, Egypt, 2011 and on. I am the young woman who finishes the dishes, folds the clothes, who sends Twitter messages calling for honor and freedom from a government of thugs. I tie and pin my headscarf and leave the house, joining thousands heading to Tahrir Square. I take to the front lines, calling out chants against oppression week after week. I throw stones, move dead bodies, send Twitter reports, video reports, send out our voices so the world sees the police brutality, so the world sees the revolution we are bringing. I live in nightmares of the security forces wrenching us away to torture us, defecate on us, threaten us with charges of prostitution, humiliate us with virginity checks. But I have lived in the secrets of rape and genital mutilation for centuries, and I am not holding secrets anymore. I run to the world and let them know what they are doing here. Instead of curling alone in pain and shame, I run to the journalists and tell them the government thugs raped me 15 times. Even as I speak, they run into the hotel to drag me screaming into the street. I let the world know with my last breaths what they are doing here. I pry myself from the nightmares, return to stand in Tahrir Square, now Liberation Square, for as long as it takes, to stand long enough to outlive the army that beats, threatens, murders its citizens. I will outlive the dictatorship and military that censors us. I envision women free to walk safely on the streets, free to go to university, free to teach, to vote, free to sit in parliament. I will bear witness until our children are safe to live. Three. I Bear Witness, Searsport, Maine, 2010 and on. I am the Maine mother, the widow, the grandmother, who finishes the dishes, folds the clothes, writes letters to the editor and the local papers, before pulling on my wool hat to drive to town. I sit on wooden benches, week after week, bearing witness at selectmen's meetings, planning board meetings, so they can't slip this tank by us. I listen, take notes, gather arguments, email information, build a network of opposition despite invisible hackers who invade my computer, despite townspeople who vilify me for speaking out, despite a so-called gag order to keep us from being heard or our questions answered, despite the relentless pressure of the oil company to break us under their will as they try to buy our town. I wake from nightmares of Searsport, our community sentenced by small-town misinformed pride, to be dwarfed by a tank of gargantuan proportions, sentenced by a corporate painted illusion to live our lives in the shadow of a tank that could erupt with a boiling, liquid, expanding vapor explosion of fire that could vaporize our town. A tank built only hundreds of feet from our families, not miles away in a buffered exclusion zone, with no fire department capable of responding. A tank built by the arrogance of an oil company who doesn't bother to include a safety plan. A tank built as a scar, a sacrilege near the mouth of an ancient river. I pry myself from nightmares to hold a vision of the refreshing winds and waters of our Penobscot Bay, safe, pure, and protected, freed from the threat of shipping lanes for megatankers, our small town freed from the pounding traffic of hundreds of heavily loaded tank trucks. I will bear witness until our children are safe to sleep.